All right, welcome back, everybody, and anybody that's new here. Thanks for joining me today. Obviously, if you've seen the thumbnail, description, and stuff like that, today is going to be a review on my Apex rod. It is a 7.2 light action panfish rod. It can be used for many other things, and I'm going to get into that. And basically, I just kind of want to do an actual review. Anybody who's been around, you guys know I like to use things for a while and not just like make well, I do a first-hand impression a lot of times, just kind of go over it and see what it is. But I want to just basically get into the actual usage properties of that rod. A lot of people think that like when you buy a panfish rod or something like that, the thing is that's a tuned up customs. They make open water rods too. I use other ice fishing rods, but last year I finally got an open water rod. And the big thing here is I want to be able to tell all the things I was able to use it for, and basically I had it all last season, so let's get into it. Okay, so as I was saying, this is a Apex 7.2 light action. The basis of this rod was that I needed a nice long rod that could throw very light baits or like my slip bobber setups when pan fishing. I want to get into the details of it, and then I'm going to give you guys some of the videos that I made last year, and we'll talk about basically how it performed and what I had discovered that I could use it for, other than just fishing for my big panfish that I like to fish for. If you guys been around, you know that I like targeting big bluegills, and that's one of the reasons I got that rod. Okay, so this rod's really big, so I'm going to have a hard time kind of showing the whole thing. That's why I showed it beforehand. One of the things I wanted to go over right away about this rod, so it's obviously it's a light action. Let's see if you can see this. So you got about, what was that, 1 foot, 2 foot, probably 2.5 feet. So 2.5 feet is about what you have off of a 7.2. That's your light action. So crappie fishing, big bluegills, anything that you need to absorb head shakes with. Something I'm going to go into in a minute here was that I ended up using this for walleye fishing. That's why currently there's just like I had a reel sitting around that had 6-pound test on it, and there was supposed to be ice. I was done fall fishing for walleye, and then I found a spot where there was ice, but the walleye were sitting in front of it. So I took this out and open water fished last fall. If you guys want to stay up with like my random stuff like that, because that was a night trip, basically you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter or my Facebook page. My Instagram and my Twitter, I'll put right here. It's at DWSDave31. That's at the beginning and end of almost all my videos, I believe. And then, obviously, DWS Outdoors on Facebook. But what I wanted to get into, though, because of this, is the fact that, so, what do we got? What did I say? 2.5 feet. So 2.5 feet of the tip is a very soft flexi tip. When you set the hook on this thing, if it's at a long distance, you really do have to give it a pretty decent hook set. I'm sure any of you guys that crappie fish know how to do like a dragging hook set. If you don't, hopefully I can go over that more with you guys this spring. The big thing with crappies is they have paper mouths. So it's so easy to tear them if you have a stiff rod and just rip the bait out of their mouth, that you want something that when you pull back on it, it sucks up a lot of your pull, and firmly places the hook point in the top of their mouth so that you don't lose them. That I've discovered was probably the best thing for this. I actually had a couple videos where I went crappie fishing with this early spring last year. Like I said, I've had this for an entire year now, so I've got to use it spring, summer, and fall. I actually got a random trip here that I'm planning, but we'll see if that actually pulls through with this one. But the other part here is that when you get back to that point where I showed you guys here, 2.5 feet back, the rest of the rod is a pretty heavy backbone. And I was actually pretty surprised to see how much backbone this thing actually has. I mean, you're talking, the funny thing is like if you had a 6-foot rod, which would be to like here, this would be like a 6-foot medium or medium light, because your flex is still out there, but from there back, you basically have a walleye rod. And that was something I discovered too. What I want to talk about here, and I'll do a little bit of jumping back and forth, is one of the things I'm going to show you guys real quick here is swimming. So first things first, I should show you, I'll just show you what I discovered last year, and then we'll kind of bounce around. But one of the things I discovered was, because it's a long rod, I'm not used to, like most of my rods over here are 6 foot or 6.5. This is 7.2, so this is one of my longer rods. One of the things I want to show you though is, because of the length of this, and I was running 4-pound test, I believe it was my 4-pound P-line, I discovered when I was pan fishing one time that I could cast these little tiny tubes. And I was fishing for white bass, and it made swimming the tubes with this extremely fun. And yeah, let's just go to that clip right now and let it speak for itself.
That's a big white bass right there. Man, it's got this rod doubled over. Don't break my line. Don't do it. Come here.
Okay, so you guys seen that. I mean, it was one of those things where I just seen them swimming around. I was actually searching the shallows for actually panfish, so like bluegills and crappie. I did see some crappie that day, but the big thing was I saw those schools of white bass swimming around, and I love catching white bass. They're a blast. I like eating them, and I like catching them because they're so fun. They're like little tigers under the water. They're super active, super twitchy, and this rod was so fun to keep them hooked up on. And you've seen in the video, it was super easy to actually keep them hooked up. I was kind of surprised because, like I said, this is a light action rod, you know, with that light tip. And usually when you have light action rods, you can lose some fish. Just depends on the rod itself. But going into the next clip, the biggest thing I think I like using this for, aside from casting really light baits like that, that was the main thing I wanted to get across, just so you guys understand with the white bass, was I was throwing like a 1/32 ounce tube, or a jig head with a tube. So that, you know, this tiny little bait, and I was able to chuck it, I don't know, with 4-pound test, I was probably getting it about 100 feet away from me. Well, 50 to 80 feet, we'll say realistically. But I was able to sight fish those schools at a distance, but if you got on top of them, they would spread out and disappear on you. So I was able to get them, you know, get the bait out to them and get the fish active, and they would chase it in and catch it and crush it. That was one of the main reasons. It was super fun casting little light baits. The second thing that I loved using this for last year was throwing my slip bobbers. So with a slip bobber rod setup, what you want is something long, and then the ability, so like this is a 7.2, the ability to measure stuff quickly. I have a whole slip bobber video. I'll put it right here in case you guys want to see that. But the big thing about slip bobber fishing is the ability to measure stuff. So like this is a 7.2 rod. You're fishing anywhere from like 5 foot to like 10 foot. It makes measuring it really quickly. And then on top of that, you can throw a bobber, light bobber setup, just like my light jig setup, really far. And then the farther out your slip bobber is, the more line you have to bring in order to get the good hook sets. So if you want a good hook set, you want something that's going to draw in a bunch of line in your sweep. So you reel down pointing the bobber, wait till it moves a little bit, and then set the hook. And then with the extra length of the rod, it will actually help you set the hook and catch more fish that way. I'll show you that clip right here.
can cast up there, but I don't know if you're gonna get them still. You're still in contact with the bottom, right? No. Hasn't shelved off on you yet. Yeah, they're still up here. God, I love that. Other male. These guys are built like tanks. He's getting angry. All his colors are getting darker as I look at him.
Okay, so obviously you know that I like catching big bluegills. The crappie were an early spring thing. I'm actually going to jump back to that clip. One thing I was doing with that one was I was swimming a little bait again. Kind of goes along the same lines as the white bass is sending that little tube way out there. I suppose you could have used the same tube for crappie fishing, but I was using, I believe, a Kalin's grub and an even lighter jig, like a 1/82 ounce or whatever they are. They're really little light jigs you got to use super early spring for crappie so that when you're bringing the bait in, it doesn't fall super fast and it gives them time to do that. The cool thing about that was what I was doing was I was using this tip actually as like a sight indicator. If you guys want to know how I was actually catching fish in that, I would swim it up and then let it fall on a tensioned line, and then as soon as you saw the bait, you know, this load up. Also, surprisingly, this rod has some feel to the backbone of it. That's the biggest reason. I don't know if I can show you this here. Yeah, that's the biggest reason I do this split grip, so that my finger's actually on the blank itself of the rod. So you'll feel the bites when they come through these rods. Let's go ahead and I'll send you over to that crappie clip real quick.
There he is.
Okay, so obviously you can see this thing swims baits great. It pulls in slip arbors awesome. I have a few things I want to try this spring that I didn't get a chance to try last spring as far as getting out and trying for my big bluegills. There are some very specific things that I like to use rods like this for. And yeah, I'm looking forward to those. So stay tuned for those videos. But last but not least, I'll just throw a photo in it here of the fish that I caught when I was out walleye fishing. And that rod, or that walleye, like I said, came as a spur of the moment thing. This reel is still sitting on there from that day. I basically just threw one of my cheaper reels on because I wasn't casting very far. I got my 6-pound P line in here. I link everything in the description that I use basically, so if you guys want to get any of this stuff, it's all linked in the description. It helps out the channel a little bit, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there. Basically helps me with gas mileage getting out to film these things for you guys. But the simplest thing I can say was that was I don't know how heavy those jerk baits are. It's a Matsu America or something like that. Matsuo. It's about a 1.5 inch jerk bait. And the thing is the water was so cold, like I said, there was actually ice forming where I was fishing. and I was casting at the edge of the ice where the walleye were staging, and I could actually see them with my headlamp. There's just eyeballs sitting out there. So, you just turn your headlamp off and cast in front of the ice sheet. And I actually had a couple of fish run into the ice sheet and get off. But that fish you guys just seen was one of them, and obviously it was on this rod, and it handled it just fine. I believe that was like a 20... I'll look, but I think it was like a 22-incher or a 24-incher or something like that. It was a pretty decent sized walleye for a light action panfish rod. So just so you guys get an understanding of like how this Apex really does have the versatility you need to fish spring to fall and fish, big panfish like big bluegills, crappie, and perch like I like to fish for, all the way out to it will handle pretty decent walleye. So that's a cool thing I discovered myself fishing with this rod as much as I did. Alright guys, so the Apex rod is my new favorite light action rod. I think I'm actually going to be getting an Apex Elite for some walleye fishing specifically, and some specific baits that I've been wanting to throw. So stay tuned for that video. I'm going to do, like I always do, I'm going to do like an unboxing. I want to kind of go over it with you guys, let you guys know what I like up front. I did basically that with this video last spring. If you want to see those videos, just go through my open water playlist. Otherwise, this guy right here has put plenty of fish topside now for me to say I would definitely get it again if I had to get another one. And if you guys are looking or have any questions about it that you might want to know as far as like what its capabilities are that I might not have talked about, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed today's review video. I hope it makes sense. These open water videos are, something I got to get into sooner than later here. It's getting warm out, so we got to get out, get some open water fishing. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Obviously, if you're not new here, you know what's up. But if you are new, can you please just remember to